An Atlanta police officer killed a deacon of a church. The man went out to grab some food and was involved in a minor traffic issue that led to his death. Let's put his picture up full mass to remind you of Mr. Johnny Holloman. Mr. Holloman's death has been ruled a homicide. If you remember, we had his daughter in an exclusive, in-depth interview on the program. This was right after she was allowed to see the video of her father's death. They have not released this video to the public, even though every single member of Atlanta City Council in a unanimous vote passed a resolution telling the chief of police, release the damn video. Here's a reminder of what she said on Indisputable.
Ms. Holman, when you got the information about what happened, what was the narrative presented to you first?
So first of all, nobody really came and spoke to me about what happened. My dad actually called me. So when he called me, he called out, he said, baby, but I could hear what was going on because the phone was on speaker, so I could hear my dad and I could also hear the officer. So seeing that video, it just gave me confirmation for what I already knew because I had already heard it. I didn't physically see it, but I heard it. So when I put what I heard to what I saw, yeah, I'm in outrage. And I feel like this officer, he needs to be prosecuted. I feel like he needs to be off the force and terminated. And I feel like the world needs to see what he did to my daddy. To me, it's just clear-cut murder.
Clear cut. She says the Attorney Davis, who was with her, civil rights attorney, he agreed with the sentiment. He saw the video as well. The police, they refused to let the public see it, even though City Council has passed a unanimous resolution. The city has since changed its policy to let officers write refusal to sign on a ticket instead of arresting someone who does not sign. I'm going to explain that in a minute. The policy requires officers to inform drivers that a signature is not an admission of guilt. It just acknowledges receipt of the ticket and court date. The Atlanta City Council last week called on the city to release the video from the incident. So let me explain what this actually means as far as a policy change. According to the officer who did this, who ended up killing a man in his 60s, a deacon of the church. He did this because, Mr. Holman committed the high crime of refusing to sign his petty ass ticket. Now, this officer, the ego can't take that. He's a man of the law. And he proceeded, according to those who have seen the video, to act in a way that was so extreme that it became about his ego and had nothing to do with justice. And while the officer put in the report that Mr. Holman refused to sign, according to those who have seen the video, Mr. Holman was saying clearly, I will sign the ticket, but I want a supervisor here. I will sign the ticket. There's something else. The policy is if you don't sign the ticket, which says in lieu of bail, if you don't sign the ticket, they're saying, well, your signature is the reason you're not going to jail. So if you don't give us the signature, I have no choice but to just put you in jail. Well, the city of Atlanta has changed that policy. You now have an option where the officer can say, refuse to sign. Look how simple the solution was. He refused to sign. That's it. This is not in lieu of you going to jail. There's more. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which is examining the officer's actions, has requested that the Atlanta Police Department not release the video until the state agency investigation is complete. Holmes' death has contributed to discontent with police among some Atlantans that centers on the proposal to build what's called Cop City. The medical examiner, Dr. Melissa Sims Stanley, said that based on a review of the video and a conversation with the GBI investigator, she concluded that Holman was unresponsive after he was stunned, after he was actually shot with a stun gun. He was likely dead then, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in their report. And let me read what Eric Mock of Fox 5 News said. The Atlanta City Council voted unanimously to urge the Atlanta Police Department, the mayor, to release body cam footage showing the arrest and in custody death of Johnny Holman. This came after impassioned demands from his family members to release the video to the public. So you got Mayor Andre Dickens, allegedly a progressive mayor. You have the city council, holistically not progressive at all. There's a whole lot of folk on one side or the other. All right. This is not a body of progressive individuals. You have absolute conservatives and you have some absolute progressives. They all agreed. We should not be taking orders from an agency that nobody in this city elected. It doesn't matter that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation made a recommendation. Fine. You make a recommendation. Great. Good for you. That has nothing to do with the authority of Atlanta. And it's amazing to me how police departments will always talk about their absolute jurisdiction to do something. And then when it comes to something like this, why don't you insert your absolute jurisdiction and tell the GBI you have no jurisdiction here? Because they don't. They can only make a recommendation. And the police department is hiding behind that recommendation as if somehow it is binding. All right. Doc, thoughts here?
Obviously, a really upsetting human tragedy. I mean, you just think, why couldn't they have just changed that policy? It seems so obvious in retrospect. But I completely agree with your analysis. I think that, we're in this moment now where there's a real debate about safety. And I think people want to feel safe. There's concerns where I live, where many people live. And part of that safety isn't just about crime and criminals. It's also about transparency about the people who are sworn to protect us. And so it just seems so obvious from cases like this that transparency builds trust, right? Transparency. It's not like people are against ceding part of their safety to other people. I mean, people feel unsafe sometimes and they need help. But when the authorities who are supposed to protect us are not transparent about it, or when it's tied up in, as you're suggesting here, and I think rightly so, bureaucracy, questions of power, it actually makes people feel less safe. And so now's a time to open that up in a way. I mean, I know a lot of issues we're talking about on the show today are about policing. But now is a moment to really take a case like this, which is horrific, and say, how many other examples of this are there where it's about power, it's not about safety, it's about bureaucracy, it's not about safety. And really, let's have a conversation about that. How can we build community consensus around safety?
Very well said. And once again, the us and them divide gets wider every time something like this happens, where even members of city council can't understand. Why would we not release the video? All right. Once again, we'll bring you updates as they come.